I think people, especially CEOs and owners, have way too much pride and arrogance. There are so many people in business, or so many people at Fencecore that are better than me in so many ways. Work off that. Put the pride and the ego aside. And I know this is cliche a bit, but if I'm the dumbest guy in the room, I'm doing something right over here. Hire people smarter, sharper, more thorough, more diligent, more analytical than me, and this thing will soar.
Hey guys, Damien Stevens, host of MSP Mindset, founder and CEO of Servosity. Today I continue my mission to interview 100 of the fastest growing and most interesting MSPs on the planet. Today I'm blessed to be joined by Dan Monk. Now, after pushing hard for 4 years to get his MSP to 3 employees and $1.5 million in revenue, something changed in his mindset. And in 2 years, he hit $10 million in revenue. So if you're an MSP that's been struggling for too long, or think, I can't get that kind of growth as a self-funded small MSP, then you're not going to want to miss out on my conversation with Dan today. So Dan, one thing I find interesting about your story is you didn't come at this as the normal tech guy, propeller head. You had a lot of expectations on you before you even thought about starting a business. Tell me about that.
Look, coming from a Jewish background, right? My parents had very high expectations of me and my siblings alike. My brother was pre-med at McGill, dermatology. You know, a sponge of a memory, like an intellect.
Right. Yeah.
Sister, straight A's. Went to law school, pre-law in Ottawa. Now she's managing partner at Macmillan. And then you had the rebellious third kid who, you know, didn't take school very seriously. I wanted to impress my parents, be a good student. But, you know, I had the attention span of a mouse, basically. I would sit in class, the teacher would be talking, and I couldn't quite grasp concepts, you know, didn't like reading, hated reading, didn't open the textbook. And I was really unsure of what my future held because I didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't love school and didn't know my path.
So you were the youngest, if I got that right.
The baby.
And then, so what did you do before you even started an MSP? Like, what did you do from there? And what did they expect of you? Like, what did they expect you to be?
So they wanted me to be a professional, right? Because my mom grew up in, you know, a family where they valued, you know, being a professional, having that backing in case things fell through. So it's like that security blanket in case you didn't make it. So I didn't have the grades to be a doctor or a lawyer. I think business is something, you know, I had a knack for, but again, I wasn't the best student. So accounting seemed like a good path. I didn't get into accounting school right away. I got into something called business administration. I think it's when the school feels bad for someone that can't quite cut it for accounting. But it's, look, listen, you're going to get the same baseline. If you prove yourself in year one, you're going to get into accounting school. So that's what I basically did. I coasted by year one, made it at the baseline, got into accounting school at John Molson School of Business. And again, like my marks were, you know, C's, C+, B-, but I knew to get into CA school, you needed at least to be average. So then over the years, I started to take it a little bit more seriously. I was very resourceful, you can call it, and brought my grades up, and eventually I had the grades to go into CA school, never pursued that route, but I did get hired by a top-tier accounting firm.
Hey guys, Damien here. As I continue to interview the top MSPs in the world, one thing has become incredibly clear. It's time that we let go. Even more than that, every time I focus on my zone of genius and get out of the way and do the very few things I'm good at and delegate to others, I'm ready for that next level of growth. So if you're ready for that next level of growth, one way that I could help you is with Servosity. We co-manage your backups and disaster recovery so you can focus on what you do best. Let us do the rest. And then what we do is we test the backups every single day so you never have to worry. If you'd like to learn more, click the link below. Okay. So you became an accountant or an accounting person. How do you end up with a tech business? Like, help me piece that together. Like, that's an odd path.
That's a great question. So I'm sitting at the accounting firm, worked there for about a year. You know, when you're taking breaks to go to the bathroom for a nap, you know something's wrong. You know you're in the wrong profession.
Yeah.
It wasn't connecting for me. I was spending more time socializing with my peers than I was trying to learn, accounting or trying to grasp concepts. It didn't cut it. So ultimately, I'm like, I got to get out of here. I need some sort of role where I can interact with people, where I can use my personality. I was the fun guy, the party guy, loved putting myself out there. I had some entrepreneurial, spirit. When I was younger, I used to buy and sell hockey cards. I would do some stuff on eBay. So there was a part of me that loved entrepreneurship, and I had a extremely bubbly personality, life of the party, class clown. So I'm like, something's not right here. So I was speaking to one of my colleagues at MNP, and I'm like, I'm not happy here. I think I'm going to start looking. He's like, well, my brother-in-law works at this, company called Insight. They're Fortune 500, reputable company. He does really well selling IT hardware and software. I'm like, I'll sell anything. So he made the referral. I mean, I had an interview. I was overqualified for the role. And the way it works at Insight is you're sitting in a classroom with 20, 30 people for 3 months, and you're learning the theory. They teach you some basics of outbound and cold calling and, nurturing relationships and positioning and the, Insight's value prop. Long story short, I was one of the top reps coming out of our graduating class. I was, 23, 24 years old, making close or over six figures. So that was, a milestone that in my mind, I'm like, by 30, I want to make six figures. I was already 24 making it. But still, I had an accounting degree. I had that entrepreneurial spirit. There was still something missing at Insight, right? I felt a bit like a telemarketer in a sense, and not to take anything away from that company. Great company. They teach you a lot. But like, they monitored your talk time and your outbound dials. And, I wanted to go visit a client in Ontario because that was my region. And they're like, no, sorry, we don't believe in that model. So it didn't feel like I was building a real business, even though you're building a business within a business because they give you the support, but you're really the client facing, person. I felt a little telemarketing, which didn't resonate well. So decided to part ways after a year.
What did you learn there? Like, it sounds like you got some things that most people don't get at that age.
Well, I'll tell you my biggest differentiator from the other people there. I wanted it. I made 120 dials a day. I called
anybody who's ever tried that.
Look,
that's hard. Right? That's real work.
It was grueling, but there was something about it that I got like this proudness, this satisfaction when I would cold call someone and they took the time and they're like, I like this guy, Dan. I see something in him. And then we built that relationship. There was something so special about that for me because that's what I enjoyed in life. So all of a sudden I'm taking, a passion of mine in life, building friendships, expanding my network, going on bachelor parties, going to weddings. Like, that's what I enjoy. Hey, I can use this in business now. What an advantage for me, because this is really my skill. So what separated me was, yes, my ability to form relationships extremely quickly, but more importantly, that work ethic early on, because I was not a good student, remember? So I couldn't read that textbook and sit there for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But you put a list of 200 names in front of me, I'm going to call each one and build relationships. So I had work ethic in the things I enjoyed, but struggled when the topic wasn't relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. So where did you go from there? So many lessons in what you've already shared there. Before you even go there, I feel like so many people miss that it's often the C student that's the entrepreneur, not the A student. And there's that desire and drive to do something different, maybe some ADD, inability to sit still. Like I won't say what you
the whole
want.
gamut, ADD, ADD. But I'll tell you my theory on that, because obviously I've read books on this. Every reel on TikTok talks about this to me now because they know what I like. Look, straight A students, and I look, I'm not going to generalize every single one, but for the most part, they're thorough, they're calculated, they're a type of personality, and they don't take as much risk. I think what differentiates that C student who almost is the underdog, who doesn't have much to lose.
Yeah.
I'm willing to put everything on the line to make this happen. So early on, when, look, I didn't have much, granted, I was just starting out, but I would have put it all on the line and bet on myself. You look at those A students that I was friends with back then, or my siblings who are also entrepreneurial, by the way, but they just don't take the same amount of risk as me. And look, it pays off. There's cons to the amount of risk I sometimes take. But at the end of the day, I think it's the risk, the appetite for risk. And, we have nothing to lose, right? We were the underdog our whole lives. Now we have something to prove.
Yeah.
So that's my theory.
I definitely understand that. So what happens next?
So I did a short stint at an MSP. I don't want to name names, but long story short, a lot was promised to me. I'll take you under my wing. We'll teach you everything there is to know about the service industry and, how to nurture client relationships. And it honestly just felt like I was running my own business within the business. And, the systems they used were quite legacy. The technical staff was, albeit they were a larger company, I think, driven by mostly sales. They had a smaller technical team, and I don't think I was getting the support that I needed and wanted and was looking for, especially when early on in your career and you're just trying to learn. So, I worked there for about a year. I had this bright idea to approach my mom, who at the time was part owner in a software business. What I liked about her business is they had an IT department that really cared about the client and took care of them at all costs. They essentially were an MSP before the word existed. So what they did is they would, anytime the software was sold, you would need, servers, you would need storage, you would need data management. And they built that division to support the software customer from an IT standpoint. But what they were realizing is, hey, these customers want to use us for more IT related stuff. So not just selling the server and managing the server that the ERP resides on, but they're starting to ask us about network and wireless and security. And I think we can offer, IT as a service, as a solution. So my mom actually oversaw the IT department and built it up quite a bit. And what they would do is they would say, okay, for X amount a month, we'll cover A to Z. So you call us whenever you need. Look, we're not going to include every project under the sun, but anytime you need support, whether it's server related, network related, wireless related, call us. We help you. It's a fixed fee per month. So essentially it was the MSP model. So what I did is I approached her and I said, look, I don't want to be an employee. I'm tired of being an employee. Essentially, I feel like I'm just working for myself at another company and have a solid client base. I want to do my own thing. So what we set up was I'm going to, incorporate. I'm going to work out of her office. I'm going to resell, hardware and software because I set up distribution. I did that all myself. I'm going to resell that to my clients. But anytime I have professional services or a project, I want to white label that to your team because you have a really good team that I want take advantage of. So it was a win-win relationship. They were getting services from new clients that they didn't have before. And, sometimes you have idle staff in IT because you can't always predict, how busy you're going to be. So they would assign those idle staff to me and I would white label their services. And, I did this.
So,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just want to break this out, right? I think there's a couple of things. I'm listening to this, like, hey, I got started with my mom and, mom or dad, whoever, right? My natural bias is to like, oh, they were successful and they just kind of threw you some business, but you already had this book of business. The other thing is not just, you didn't really just, take like some clients from your mom or whatever. You had your own book, but kind of the other way around, right? You weren't looking for business. You could drive business. If I understand this right, you wanted the capacity to fulfill. And not only do that, probably more importantly, from what I'm getting from your story, Dan, is like to do it really well, to care when you deliver. Is that right?
Yeah. So let me be clear. I did not take any handouts and I didn't believe in taking handouts. And trust me when I tell you, my friends chirp me, my brother would chirp me. So the company was called Momentous. And at my wedding, my friends made a speech. They called it Mommy Mentis, Even though I had my own company name and my own, I would just get chirped all the time because they're like, oh, you're going to work for your mom, right? You
Right.
over your life, which I mean, let's be honest. She gave me that platform, that start that I needed, right? I didn't have capital. I didn't have infrastructure. I didn't have systems. I didn't have anything, right? I was just starting out. So her and her company gave me, that starting ground that I really needed, but I wasn't taking handouts. Like you said, I had my own customer base. The reason most of them followed me is because I genuinely cared about them. Some of my best clients I'm best friends with today. I go to their weddings. I've been to their bachelor party. I go out with them frequently. We go to hockey games. Like, these are friends of mine. And, those are not fake forged relationships. Those are genuine. So they followed me. That was my platform. And yeah, that's really how I got started. And look, I'll give you the quick background. 2017, she sold her shares. Ownership had a different vision for the company. They wanted to bring the ERP to the public cloud. They didn't really want to focus on IT. That's a decision I, understand. That wasn't their core business. Focus on what you're good at. And 2017 is really when, I hired my first employees and got started. And naturally, like a lot of their customers followed because, I had some of this staff that I was able to bring over when they were, thinking of dissolving the team. And it's been a whirlwind since 2017. But I even though we incorporated in 2013, I really see it as that we started in 2017.
So share some of the revenue numbers, right? Because this is the part that's really shocking, right? So 2013, by the time you got to 2017, about where were you in terms of revenue?
So that's kind of when I was that sole proprietor working out of her office. I think in 2017, I'm doing about $1 million in sales, like basically focusing on a lot of professional services. Mm-hmm. The hardware and software was never my core focus. Like, I always saw, more gains from professional services or contractual obligations. I would still sell hardware. Maybe I was doing a little bit more, 2 million at that time. But then when I went out on my own, focused my time on client acquisition, we were scrappy, right? I'm doing a bit of operations. I'm involved in finance. I'm visiting clients. I literally rented U-Hauls at times to do shipments myself with clients, right? Just scrappy shit. But ultimately, I grew this from, that $1.5 million of business to over 10 million in two and a half years. So it was just rocket growth.
Yeah.
It was
Crazy.
fun. It was challenging. There were sleepless nights. Like, I miss those days a bit because it's a very different company today. But you look back and you're like, fuck, I did that. I did that. And I should be proud.
How the heck do you go from, I don't know, 1.5, let's call it, to 10 million in 2 or so years? Is that right?
Look, I think there's a bit of luck. There's a work ethic for sure. There's hustle, grind. Like, there's so many factors. But if I really look at the success, it was I never gave up and I attacked at all costs. So again, I never stopped making those cold calls. Like, some people would say, well, I'm the owner of the company and I'm just going to hire a sales team and, hire people that can sell and put themselves out there. And no, I never believed in that. Like, to this day, my sales team is ultra small. Obviously, we're trying to build it. We can, talk about some of that, those struggles later. But I wanted to make, 100, 120 calls. I wanted to go to those client meetings, close business. I wanted to meet existing customers and see how we can help serve them better. And it wasn't always about upselling and cross-selling. Actually, it was never. It was about building those relationships with the existing customers, with prospective customers, getting to know them, getting to know their business, seeing if there are synergies, seeing if there are ways I can help. And ultimately, through relationship building and my knowledge of IT, you brought those two things together, and I was bringing customers very, very rapidly.
So there's so many things to unpack right here. Obviously, when we're talking about, what is that? 8+ million, 8.5 million growth in 2 years that you added to get it from 1.5 to 10 million. About how many employees did that require to get to?
So when we were 10, I think we were about 15 employees, I'd like to say. So it wasn't a whole lot. Bear in mind, back then, even though I was trying to focus on contractual obligations and professional services, I would say hardware made up still 70% of our business, because you could sell a 10,000 a month contract, but think about how many you have to sell of those to get to that 11, 12 million in sales. So hardware, I mean, you can have $1 million pop. It's easy for the top line, obviously not as good for the bottom. But you fast forward today, and I've pivoted that whole model where I'm like, hardware and software is an afterthought. They could buy on Best Buy, CDW. There's a million companies that sell hardware. There's no real value prop there. But let us be your one-stop shop. Let us be that consulting arm. Let us be that CIO on demand. And you're going to end up buying hardware from us anyway, because you're going to realize we don't care about that revenue, that profit. We'll give it to you at cost to solidify other business. So we've brought that from 70% hardware and 30% managed services to the reverse. Now we're 70% managed services and 30% hardware.
That's amazing. So I love how you were like, oh, it's no big, deal. A lot of it was hardware, only 15 employees, but only, right? I mean, it's one thing to like pull off the sales side, which most MSPs can't grow that fast. Even if you could, there's the how do you keep up with it, right? That sort of thing. Let's start with that, right? Most of us in the MSP industry started as the tech guy, not good at sales and marketing. Obviously, that was your thing, right? That seems like one of the things you're really gifted at. Actually give me some of the how. How did you do that? Was it just you and a phone and cold calls? What was it?
So there were times when I would be on Google Maps, dragging that cursor, going through the streets. Oh, that looks like a big building. What's that company name? Okay, I'm going to give them a call. And I would just call and build a relationship, because those days were different. Like, technology wasn't quite there. List building, like, you didn't have Zoom info and so and even if it did exist, I couldn't afford it at that time. So yeah. I would get scrappy. I would be on Google Maps, researching things on Google. I would see lists like, top 100 growing companies and find the list, call each one. leverage my network. So I would call, some of my parents' friends and just get to know them. Do you have any friends in business? Put my name out there. So it was any way to get my name and brand out there. That was my focus. I would be in the hockey locker room, and hockey is obviously something I'm very passionate about. But I would be in the hockey locker room just talking about my business, like in passing, you know, making jokes about it, right? Talking about my journey, building friendships. And then some of these people that I play hockey with are now VPs and CIOs. And so I never stopped, right? And it's natural. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm going to hockey today to talk about Fencecore. No, it's just I was passionate about it. It was something that I was spending a lot of time on and energy on. So naturally, you're going to put it out there, and building friends to me is what made me successful, because these friends became clients, these friends became employees, these friends became prospective customers. So my friend circle is strong, and it's just helped me so much in business. So that's the how.
So here's something that a lot of people say, they jump to conclusions. They're like, people that, make $100 a day, those good salespeople, like they're just trying to push things, just trying to meet the numbers. But, you're dealing with friends. From day one, you were telling me about how you cared about the delivery. Why is that so important to you?
Because I'm also a pleaser by nature. It's a pro, but there's also cons. I put people before myself. Part of what's made me successful, though, and this is one of the pros, is I really, really care what they think, whether they're a friend, just a regular customer, prospective customer. Like, I value their input. I'm empathetic. Like, I feel what they feel, and I act accordingly. I think the reason why we hit it off early on is because there's that genuineness. They don't feel like I'm trying to sell. And the truth is, I'm not. I'm not trying to sell. If I could help you, make you feel good, make you look good in your role, then this is going to work. If I have to push and position, Fencecore and the products, it's not going to work. It's just not me. Like, some of my sales cycles are 3 years, because we've built friendships, and we'll talk about business, and they know they could use us, but they're in other but it doesn't matter, because I put the friendship first, and the business will follow suit. And I think over time, they're like, he was the fun guy, he was the class clown, he wasn't the good student. But when they see how knowledgeable I am in business or in IT, they also want to work with me. So I try to focus on those things, not actually selling anything.
That's a huge difference. I think there's so many people that jump to conclusions and think the sales side. I want to stay on that for a minute. Why do you think we're so bad as an industry, MSP industry, at sales? And in fact, many, I think of us, kind of like, like very commonly I'll hear MSP say, oh, well, I've gotten to this size, maybe a good sized business, pick a number, 5 million, 10 million, whatever, 2 million, but whatever the number is, they're like, oh, and it's all referral, all organic. We don't do any sales. And they'll say that like a badge of honor, which is great that you have good referrals and maybe good retention, but to the acquirer or to the whatever's going on, that tells me that you don't have an outbound, you don't have a customer acquisition engine, you don't have that part figured out at all, or even have tried. Why do you think we're so bad as an industry?
Look, this is my opinion. People may disagree or think differently. I think people, especially CEOs and owners, have way too much pride and arrogance. I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm horrible at, and need to stay away from, right? I have zero pride. People joke. They're like, oh, well, you're the CEO, you can do what you want, you can talk. I have zero pride. What I care about is building something impactful, meaningful, where people feel good, where clients feel good. I don't need to be put on a pedestal. I don't need to feel good myself. Like, zero pride and arrogance. I think that's what makes someone good in sales without even selling a thing. And I've worked on that. Obviously, as a young kid, you're making six figures, you're arrogant, right? I signed, my contract at an accounting firm. I was basically making nothing, but I saw the number. I went out and leased a Mercedes. Like, I was an arrogant, ignorant young kid, but you realize over time, like, don't have pride. There are so many people in business, or so many people at Fencecore that are better than me in so many ways. Work off that.
Mm-hmm.
Put the pride and the ego aside. And if and I know this is cliche a bit, but if I'm the dumbest guy in the room, I'm doing something right over here. Hire people smarter, sharper, more thorough, more diligent, more analytical than me, and this thing will soar.
So I want to go back to something you said, though, is like knowing what you're really good at and what you're not. How did you figure that out?
I've known for a long time what my skill set was and where I wanted to play. Basically, Fencecore hit a bit of a wall where I'm like, how am I going to scale this business? I'm one guy. I may be, really good in sales, really good at building relationships, but I'm really having trouble scaling beyond where we are today. And I just feel like we're hitting a wall,
Mm-hmm.
Our ops could use improvement, processes, workflow system. We just need an uplift. Like, I feel like we're not quite there. So what I did is, me and my brother-in-law were working out together for a year. He's well decorated. So ex-McKinsey, part of the Astral Media deal at Bell. He was CSO at PBSC. They were acquired by Lyft. So a lot of accolades, CPA, like bright, impressive guy. His skill set's literally the polar opposite of mine. So we're working out, and his company was just acquired. And I'm like, what's next for you? He's like, I don't know. At Lyft, maybe, I don't know if there's much expansion and growth. I may feel like just a number there. I'm like, well, I could use someone with your profile. And like, we laughed it off, But after a year of talking and lifting weights together, he's a lot stronger and more fit than me. He decided to join, and he's been with me a year and a half. He's COO, and he's, I think, finally going to get us over that hump that we needed to get over. So knowing, where my skill was, and he reiterated, of course, he's like, you're sales and marketing, I'm the rest, has helped tremendously. And I wanted, like a lot of CEOs have that tendency to hoard. Well, I need to oversee this, and I need to be a part of that, and you can't make this decision without me. I'm literally the opposite. Like, leave me out of everything. I can't focus on that stuff because I want to focus on making sure the customer is getting what they need and new customer acquisition. Mm-hmm. That has to be my core focus. So we're changing as a company because we've been able to separate those duties.
That's huge. Yeah. So I don't want to miss out on this part, which is you grew in $8.5 million or so in revenue in 2 years. Even so, where were you when you kind of 2017 when you were talking about officially incorporated? About how many employees? Were there any? Was it just you?
Oh man, so it was just me essentially, but the company I was working out of, so my mom's company, had dedicated 2 or 3 full-time resources to my accounts because I was referring them so much business. Mm-hmm. So when I sold, when she sold, 2, I would say, people followed me right away, but it was like a blank slate, like no job descriptions, no systems. We had nothing. So I'm like, okay, you're going to follow me, you're going to service, our clients, but we got nothing.
That's funny.
So it was starting from scratch essentially with like a decent baseline of clients that I've built up, one or two techs. I hired, someone in APAR who was overseeing the bookkeeping as well, and that was it.
So you had a couple techs, but then in the next couple of years, you grew so fast, you have like 15 employees. How did you manage to pull all that off and have the right people to be able to deliver? Because you have this hyper growth that most people don't see, yet you also, for lack of a better way to say, give a crap about the quality of service delivery, right? There are some people that just hyper scale and, they just drop the ball left and right. So how did you try to keep up with it?
So first things first, what I identified that we needed right away, and I invested it in probably a lot earlier than most MSPs, was a system. We needed a system, okay? Enough with quoting on Excel, tracking on Excel. It's not feasible, right? There was no integration with our accounting. There was data was scattered. So I said, we're still a small company. ConnectWise is going to cost us a fortune. It's 50, 60 grand at the time for, a little shop. I'm like, we need it. So it was, quoting, accounting, it had an inventory module, it's project management, so ticketing, and all encompassing system.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was seeing, okay, we could start billing more, we can start tracking more. This is going to work. So system was first, and then adding resources. I would only hire technical resources after I sold the mandates. So that was the key, right? Because a lot of the time you staff technicians and then they're sitting idle because there's ebbs and flows and projects, but I went after contracts, right? So I would land a contract, say it was $8,000 a month. Shit, now I can afford two technicians or a tech or whatever it was. So I would go out and sell. I would then staff. I would go out and sell more, and then I would staff more, and that's how we grew. So I was never out of pocket because I made sure that the contractual revenue covered our technical resource pool.
Well, that sounds really cool, but like in my experience, you close the deal, like you're onboarding next month, that client or whatever, or that week, or depending on their needs. How do you find somebody so fast? Let alone how do you ramp them up? Like in my experience, I'm like, cool, I closed the deal, but that means I needed somebody 3 months ago to be ramped up.
That's a very good point. And thinking back, there's two comments I want to make to that. So I did have that person that was dedicated to onboarding, who was one of my first two technicians.
Oh, wow.
So they weren't doing reactive help desk or, any of the managed services. They were specifically onboarding in special projects.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I was able to, onboard customers without overwhelming the support team. Obviously, back then, our onboarding was very different than it is today, right? Mm-hmm. It was not as thorough, well-documented. We didn't do all the security network assessments that we do today, the gap analysis, the responsibility matrix. Like today, we're very sophisticated in our onboarding. Back then, we had to be, a little more scrappy, to say, not to say we didn't onboard and deliver a good service, but it can't, it's nowhere near where it is today with the right resources, the right systems, the right operations team and project management team. So we onboarded, I would say, to the best of our ability, but we always prioritized customer happiness, and we would have regular cadence calls with the customer and just be in their face all the time. We would have techs on site. Like, we wanted them to have a good experience because we knew we were lacking in the organizational structure.
Mm. So even if you're just had somebody dedicated to onboarding, which is a huge deal in the early days when you only had a tech or two, et cetera, like you said, that you could afford another tech, but usually the way the MSP business goes is you also need another. So whether you're going from 2 to 3 or 10 to 12 or whatever that, number is, you usually need that, in my experience, capacity. So does that end up, like most people, it's like, well, everybody works overtime while we staff and ramp up a new person, or we've overstaffed ahead of time. I don't know if you figured out something else.
So look, there were times when, we were short staffed and the technical team was working very hard, very long hours. There were times when we were overstaffed and, there were technicians sitting idle. I know that's part of the business. Like there's no way around that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, because the strength of because we had such a good relationship with our customers, most of them were almost patient with us in a sense. They're like, okay, Dan just started hiring, just started implementing systems. We know that, they may be short staffed, but we're going to be tolerant because when I call Dan Saturday night at 10 p.m. with an issue, he either sends someone or he's there himself, right? And I'm not technical, but I would go and fix the cable myself or, do whatever I had to do. So I think they were tolerant because they knew how much we cared. They knew how much we were willing to go the extra mile. They had unbelievable with the tech relationships with the techs we did have. So there was definitely that tolerance and understanding early on. Less today because they're like, oh, you guys are big now. You have to deliver.
Well, I think that's a really good point because I think in the midst of growing really quickly, it's easy to lose how much you care and how much that can only, drive things like retention, but give you that, like it's human to human interaction of like, okay, like I'll be a little patient. I'll wait a little longer.
And you know what? That's how I treat vendors too, right? Because I know that that's how I want to be treated. So tolerance and patience, like we're human beings at the end of the day. No one has all the answers. No company is perfect. And trust me when I tell you, no company is perfect. The bigger the company and from the outside, you're like, oh, they have all the processes figured out. They're the worst, right? So you have to be patient and tolerant and focus on the things that are not tangible, like the intangibles, the relationship, the care, the want to do better, I can't put my finger on it per se, but just the immaterial things. And if you build a relationship properly, you're gonna see you're gonna see a lot of that.
So part of your story is this rocket ship to 10 million, then a little growth after, and then, you've obviously gone from kind of 30% managed to maybe 70%, kind of flip the hardware equation, which is amazing. Brought in the CEO, you've got all these great things, but if I understand, part of your story has also been like rocket ship to 10 million and then hit a wall. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I would say the last 2.5, 3 years have been some of the most challenging, throughout my entire journey. Look, there was COVID where a lot of sizable projects were put on hold. Working remote, right? Our office was closed. I'm the most social person on the planet. You can't isolate me in a basement somewhere and expect me to be driven and hungry. So that also sucked the sail out of me. I was hurting during COVID. And then post-COVID era, obviously really focusing on those managed services and professional services to bring up our recurring. Hardware sales went down. But something kind of changed in me where I was a little less driven, a little less, motivated and hungry. Like I lost my edge a little bit, that fire in me. Maybe it was burnout. Maybe it was COVID. Maybe it was not seeing that rocket ship progression that I thought was just going to happen for the rest of my life, right?
Right.
But I have to say, for the past 6 months, maybe it's the COO coming in, my brother-in-law, and really shaping the company so I can focus on the things that I'm good at. And like, we just hired a VP of IT delivery. We're starting to feel like we're well run, well organized. And it's back. My fire's back. So, the outlook is very optimistic. Like, we're targeting, let's say, 13 million in sales this year. And I think we can hit it, which is kind of cool, because we did plateau from a revenue standpoint. Obviously, our recurring revenue, as you know, went up substantially, but I'm going to target that 20 to 50% year over year from here on out, because I'm back.
Yeah.
And I need to build a sales team, which is my my constant battle. But I have some people committed that I think are good. So with a good sales team, I can only imagine what we could accomplish.
About how many people do you have now?
So we're me, one BDR.
The whole team is what I was really.
Like company wide, or just on the sales side?
Yeah, the whole company.
So we're about 40 people today.
Okay. Yeah. And so there's two parts of this, right? Is you could say, oh, you've been somewhere around 10-ish million for several years, then that is a wall. But the other part of it is you're probably were 3-ish recurring to 7. I'm just jumping, guessing numbers. So there's been a tremendous amount of increase in recurring revenue. Of course, people that have to come along, or that get to come along with it, process has to be developed, value that was still created. So, even if the vanity number of top line, if I can say it that way, stayed the same, like some really important things, people, process, recurring revenue, right? There's a lot of other probably far more important things have increased.
Yeah, and the truth is we're investing in our people right now, probably even before seeing the ROI. Like COO, VP IT, we brought marketing in-house. We're starting to hire inside sales. We hired customer success. So these are not necessarily things we needed to maintain our business, but these are things we need to scale our business. And my hope is that by investing in all this top end talent, we're going to start soaring. And I would say we're buzzing right now. So good things are happening. And again, I'm optimistic about the future and excited. So
Dan, you've been the natural sales guy, the whiz kid in sales, or however you want to frame it, right? You just, that's been your gift, it seems like. Well, where have you struggled?
Well, look, I would say people like to associate, sales and marketing kind of, they couple it under one umbrella. But just because I'm good at building relationships and putting myself out there does not mean I know a thing about marketing.
Yes.
So that was eye-opening, because I'm like, sales and marketing, same thing. I'll post a bit on LinkedIn. Little did I know that, like, marketing is actually an art. There's search engine optimization. There's paid advertising. There's newsletters. There's events. I didn't know any of that. So learning that side has obviously been fun and a challenge at the same time. We finally decided to bring marketing in-house because we outsourced for the past 5-6 years. But I feel like when we were outsourcing, it didn't have the same care, right? I'm sure there are companies that do it really well and do care, because I believe in the outsourcing model, hence, Fencecore. But we just didn't find the right fit. And I wanted to really learn about it myself, see what works, see what doesn't, try different things. And we may outsource portions later on, but I wanted to make that decision. And just, at the beginning, I was doing a lot of the finance stuff myself, accounts pay. I was calling up clients for checks at the beginning, right? I was, like I said, doing shipments. So I think over time I realized, I'm like, I could spend my time, working in the business, which I liked, by the way. I liked being scrappy. I liked being involved in different things. Or I can really focus on the things that I'm good at and matter most and will be the most impactful. So now when I'm going through my day, I really analyze, should I be the one doing this? Like, I'm not the right person. And I really, I start questioning myself a lot throughout the day. And I'm like, there's someone better than me who should be doing this. Like, they'll deliver it better. They'll care more. They'll be more thorough. Like, I'm not the right person. So I really try to pull myself away from the things that don't feel right. And I know it won't have an impact, and focus on the things that really matter from a high level and, and a day to day. Like, I still get my hands dirty, but in things that I think will really help us scale.
Let's talk about the one I think everybody struggles with, if you even get this far, which is building a sales team. Tell me about that.
So, look, just because you're good at an individual skill, like me, I'm good in sales. I'm also, I have good vision. I would say I'm about 2-3 years ahead of the market always, which is important as a leader, but doesn't mean I'm good at managing. So I would say from a people manager standpoint, I'm incredible because I'm a people person. I'm fun. I'm motivating. But from an accountability standpoint, I'm terrible. Right? That's where my pleaser comes into play. I don't want to disappoint you. I want you to feel good and be happy. But the truth is, in sales, if you're not doing well, right, it's obvious because it's results driven. It's either you're selling or you're not. Here are your quotas or you meet.
Yeah.
But I still fail, to hold people accountable. I have trouble letting people go. I build relationships. I care. So yeah, I've had some failures on the sales side over the last 3 years. A lot of turnover, a lot of leadership changes. We've invested a lot, and we've never have seen. Well, not never. We haven't really seen as much of an ROI as I would have wanted, given what we put into that team. But I made the decision to take over sales and marketing about 4 months ago. One of our leaders left the company to pursue another opportunity. We became very close friends. He did a lot of great things for the company. He was my third employee. But with that said, this is giving me a unique opportunity to really build it kind of from scratch, in a way that I believe could be the most impactful. Mm-hmm. It's giving me like a clean slate, albeit difficult to part ways with someone you've grown very fond of. I believe like it was the best for his career and maybe for Fencecore in a sense, because that fresh start is maybe what we needed at a time where we felt like we couldn't scale and we were plateauing. So I'm kind of reinventing Fencecore sales.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And nerve-wracking because I don't have any experience building a sales team.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about. I have made most of those mistakes building the sales team, and also I can be good at sales and not good at marketing. I very much relate to that. I also understand, like, just because I can close doesn't mean it made me a good sales manager. Mm. And especially like you said, it's like, oh, well, it's great to be a people person, but that whole, did you make your calls today? Did you follow up with your people? There's a lot of that. What's been your biggest challenge there?
Coaching. I find I know the skill. I know what to say on the phone. I know how to approach a customer. I know what email to write. How do I get those skills passed off to someone else without being on the call and leading it or sending that email for them? Like, my biggest challenge in a sense is coaching. And I've gone to coaches to help me coach. Like, yeah. You know what I mean? And they're like, lead with asking questions, don't solve the problems for them. Like, I know all the soft skills, but put me on a call with a BDR that works at Fencecore, I'm going to be talking 99% of the time, because in my head, I'm like, we got to close this deal. I know how to. So passing off those skills to other members of my team has been a challenge for me.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Well, I want to switch gears. On all your years in business, Dan, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned?
It's a loaded question and a tough one to answer, because I've learned a lot of lessons. Before I get into the lesson, I do want to say that entrepreneurship is an extremely humbling experience.
Yes.
I thought, look, I didn't think it was going to be a walk in the park, but I thought, with my skill set, the early success,
Early success is what will get you, right?
I thought I had it, right? I'm
Yeah.
like, everyone says starting a business is so difficult. I don't see it. This is not bad. And then, have I ever been humbled over the years? So I would say the biggest lesson is twofold. One is staying true to yourself. There were many instances, or years even, where I tried to put on this persona, being someone who I wasn't, acting more professional than I actually wanted to be, speaking in a way that didn't feel right, So stay true to yourself and be humble. Yes, you could be proud. You could be a little cocky at times. You could be assertive, right? But try to stay humble throughout the process, because when you get ahead of yourself, I think that's when, bad stuff tends to happen, right? I was getting really excitable about the future, and I was getting a little cocky, and boom, COVID happened, business was closed, wasn't going into the office, I'm in a depression. So just stay humble and modest, and try to enjoy the journey.
That's good advice. If there's one thing you could do over or do differently, what would that be?
There was one thing I could do over. That's a good question. That is a good question. Honestly, I have no regrets, and I've made mistakes, right? I've hired people that I shouldn't have. I've spent absorbent amounts of money on things that didn't help my business. You know what? I like to say this, and I really believe in this. If you don't make big mistakes, you'll never learn. So if it's an easy ride, and it was at the beginning, how do you get better? How do you learn so you don't make that mistake again? You can't. And those mistakes have defined who I am today, and have made me a better person, a more mature person, a more humble person. So I wouldn't do over anything, minus maybe COVID.
Yeah.
That's beyond my control. Anything I can control, I wouldn't do over.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Well, given where you are and what's going on in just the industry, the world, et cetera, what's something that you're looking forward to?
A company that runs a little smoother with, really solid leadership. What do I mean by that? A little bit more efficiency, introducing AI more, less involvement, on myself. So just, I think I'm going to enjoy less, weirdly. Like, I think it's going to be a little quieter. Like, managing customers is becoming easier. Onboarding customers is becoming easier. The day-to-day seems more simple with AI, efficiency, better workflow, better. So I want to enjoy that tranquility to focus on my real skill, which is relationship building, customer acquisition, maybe acquiring another MSP down the road, because that's also relationship building. So the tranquility.
Let me flip that around. What's your biggest challenge?
knowing what to do day in and day out, sitting at my desk and trying to figure out what I should be focusing on in that moment, that day, that week, that month. Like, I've been reactive throughout my career, so I'm very in my email. I get a lot of client messages, sales inquiries, internal, and you get caught up in that. But that's not really helping the big picture. So I would say, sitting at my desk and knowing what to do has been, a constant thought that's gouging my mind often.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
But I'm trying to work on that piece because, turning off your email for 4 hours and writing down things that you want the company to work on, or you want to work on yourself, or, a list of target customers that you want to go after, or a list of friends you made last week. Doesn't matter which, just doing things that aren't the ordinary so that you can be different. So that's something that I'm working on, and that's also been a challenge.
Yeah, I love that. I love the candor around that, because I feel like so many times people frame their challenge as like, oh, I just need to get better at X skill. But I love that, as a CEO, your responsibility is everything. So, I can totally relate to, like, in this given moment, what is the highest and best use of my time?
And it's a bit of a mind fuck. I never feel like I'm doing enough.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was working 60, 70-hour weeks.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that today. I have 2 young kids. If I worked 70-hour weeks,
it's a whole different issue.
I wouldn't be with my kids.
Yeah.
But no matter how much I do or how little I do or what I work on, you can't get rid of the feeling like you're not doing enough for your business and your people.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that way constantly.
Yeah.
I could close a $2 million deal. The next day, I'll feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough today. So
celebrate the other day, and the next day, yeah.
100%. So I think that's also a challenge, right? And you just got to feel like it is enough one day, because you got to feel fulfilled. And if you don't, you're gonna play those games, and you'll be chasing. So yeah.
Where do you think that comes from?
Honestly, being a bit of my parents loved me my whole life. I had the most supportive parents. So I want to preface it by saying that they cared for me, they were there, but there was a lot of pressure put on me in school. Yeah. And because I had every, D in the book, ADD, ADHD, school wasn't my thing, as you know. And there was a lot of that pressure put onto me, like, your grades are low, you don't care enough, you're lazy, you're late, right? And I was told that narrative a lot. And they were just trying to be good parents and motivate me and push me to the best of my ability. But I think there's this sense that I constantly, have to prove something. Yeah. Because I was always, felt like I wasn't enough, and I wasn't scholastically, that's for sure. But there's that also, like, so there's the prove, but there's also, like, how do you put it into words? And I also don't want to insult anybody, like, I was never enough, in a sense. I always felt like I was never enough or never doing enough. And, you don't just get rid of emotions from when you were younger. And You know what? I thank my parents, in a sense, for pushing me that hard, because I didn't turn out so bad. Yeah. Yeah. Right. If I had nothing to prove, would I be here? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, double-edged sword, right? You get both of this bundled together.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, well, I can definitely relate to that. I appreciate you sharing it. I also think that, ADHD, ADD, a whole bunch of other things, not just those, different levels of neurodivergence is far more common than people realize. And, I am, my kids, my wife are, the industry tends to be, and so it's a passion of mine. It's like, hey, just because you're not good at sitting still and, reciting facts, that makes you a certain type of person, right? There's nothing wrong with these people, but there's a certain type. But, you have these gifts in these other areas that, that you're using your gifts, right? You're living in your, zone of genius, or different ways you want to put it, and using your gifts in ways that allow that to shine, right? And so, but, it is so easy to be, colored by that. And I think what's worse is, whether it's me or my kids or, somebody that's working for me or somebody I'm mentoring, it's really easy to hear or internalize, like, I'm not enough or I'm dumb. And you're like, no, those are not the same.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Well, Damien, think about it. Like, the schooling system, right, rewards good memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could remember the phrase in the textbook or that math problem. Is that intelligence? Is memory intelligence? Okay, so my memory is not as good.
Right.
But put me in a room with 10 executives and I can sell them on anything. So I was always confused by how they were like critiquing these young kids, because I had so many skills. I was the best in gym. I was the most social, class president. In certain classes that I was actually interested in, I excelled.
Mm-hmm.
And, geography and history, and I was horrible because I'm like, this is not really serving me. So I just find this schooling system, a little unfair. And my parents really valued grades and schooling, and that's how they were raised, and that's acceptable. But it didn't resonate with me. I didn't believe in it. And look, I'm not going to tell my kids that from day one. Like, I'm going to tell them, listen, try hard, build good work ethic, care, build relationship. But I'll always have that feeling about school in a sense, because I was kind of traumatized. I'm like, I suck at this and I feel belittled and low. Yeah. And then when I got into the business world, I'm like, holy shit, I'm amazing at this. I feel amazing. So it was just like, it was almost like a drug for me, getting out of school, not having to worry about that shit anymore, and going into the real world that people value a lot more than school, and just crushing it. That was exhilarating.
Nobody cares if you remember what the 37th president was, right? Nobody asks you that.
And by the way, when you're in the workforce, no one knows, did you graduate? Were you a good student? What'd you get? Yeah. What was your R score in CJEP or university? Or no one cares, right? A lot of successful people today don't even go to university. They go right to entrepreneurship, or they go right to, coding or anything. So I don't know. It's, I did have fun in school in a sense. Like, I built a lot of good relationships. I was president of my class in high school and elementary. I was popular. That part was fun, but class was deathly for me. Deathly. Couldn't hear a thing. Couldn't absorb anything. I would gaze. I would talk. Yeah. That's my take on school.
No, I couldn't agree more. I know that one of my kids is dyslexic, and as an accommodation, they were going to give them extra time on a test. But being severely dyslexic, my wife who is dyslexic as well, said, look, that's like moving us to China and giving me an extra 20 or 30 minutes on an exam. Like, I'm still not going to be able to.
Great analogy.
To finish.
Yeah. That's so true. And correct me, but like, isn't there like a billionaire who's this like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Richard Branson is one of the more outspoken ones. That's right. Yeah. So no. There's two things, right? One, there's a high degree of the dyslexia makes you more likely to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
In other forms of neurodivergence, and I don't know the full correlation, right? But it seems to be that, like, the world appreciates what you're able to do. Because the thing is about, kind of like what you're saying about schooling, in the real world, we don't need you to be equal at, math and science and language and history. And, you know what I mean? We want you to be amazing, usually in like an area, and you can be horrible in other areas, and we hire you for that all day long.
100%. And you know what? Maybe for me, there was a bit of like an overcompensation where I felt like I was inferior at school, but you know, like I was good at sports. I had a personality, and I think I like almost maybe worked on that side more because I'm like having more success in my social life than I was in schooling. Like if I was a good student, maybe I would have said, hey, I'm good at this, you know, I'll take it more seriously. But I just wasn't. And I was good at the social part. And I think that's where I put a lot of focus. Oh, you know, if I'm funny, people want to surround themselves with me. Oh, I can become the president of elementary because people want to be with me. And I think I saw that was my skill. And I think I focused more on that. So maybe that could be a part of it. I don't know, but I hear you. The people, you know, who have that personality, who, you know, put themselves out there tend to be entrepreneurial and see a lot of success. And obviously, you know, that's a generalization. It's not always the case, but you have straight A students who I'm sure are solid entrepreneurs as well. But you know, from what I've seen, most entrepreneurs we're not great in school.
Yeah. There's an author of a book for our MSP industry I was talking to recently, and as I'm working on my book, and they were saying you got to put out the audiobook version because so many of us are dyslexic in the industry. We're just not going to read.
I don't read books. I listen to the audiobook. By the way, I've never read a textbook in school ever.
Wow.
You know what I used to do? Let's say it was math class. I'd go to the last 3 pages with the problems. I'd look at the answer. I'd reverse engineer the answer, and that's how I studied. I couldn't read the textbook because I would be 4 words in, and I'd be like, "What did I just read again?" Restart. 6 words in. What did I just read again? Okay. Yeah. Oh, what is my friend doing? Oh, what?
Yeah. Look out the window. Right. Yeah.
Look, I could read an article today about a business or finance. Like I could read, but not about a topic I didn't want. So I never read textbooks. It's all audio for me.
Sure. But look, if somebody had seen that, like, wow, the way you're getting at this young kid, Dan, is like reverse engineering the problem at the end, you know, instead of belittling you and pressuring you to fit into this mold, they should have said, gosh, you know, we could put him in like code breaking for the, you know, CIA or something else. Like there's just all these other uses. You just never know.
Like if you could get a B, okay, because it was like A, B, C, D, right? If you could get a B with studying for 2 hours and studying, reverse engineering the math up, and then the kids were getting B plus, A minus, maybe I got a B minus, C plus sometimes, but if I was getting in that range with no studying, shit, maybe I was smarter than I gave myself credit for. You know? Like,
that's right.
Maybe I should have got some credit or an award.
That's right. Yeah, I love that. Well, on the topic of books, what is your favorite? I know you may not what you would call read. I listen to them too, but
look, I'm all about mindfulness and trying to be present. I mean, I think today everyone has this issue where you're always on your mobile, you're on TikTok, you need constant dopamine. And trust me, I'm like that. So I try to be mindful. I do a little meditation. I sometimes sit in a hot tub and just clear the mind. So I read this book growing up. It was called Power of the Now. And literally it's all about like Buddhism and being present, mindfulness. And I recommend it because it taught me a lot of the, you know, tips and tricks I do to stay mindful today. Even though I'm not perfect and I don't preach to be. But it was Power of the Now. Look, it's been 15 years since I read a book. I'm more into like articles and, you know, I'll read like parts of a book or parts of it. Sure. But Power of the Now was a full book that I read way back when, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I appreciate that book recommendation, but also I think there's something you said that is worth kind of digging into, which is it took me too long to realize, to give myself permission, that it's okay to read part of a book.
100%. You know how many? I have 6 books on my shelf right under me. Like, what are they? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Higher Power, You Are a Badass. I've read probably 1 or 2 chapters in each book.
Yeah.
Because I lose interest. It's part of my, ADD, ADHD. But also variety. Like, you get more, right? You just get exposure to more. And look, time is of the essence too. Time is limited, right? 2 kids, a business, it's a lot of balancing. Like, when am I sitting down and reading for 3 hours? You're just not. It's not realistic. So I'll read a chapter here. On vacation, that's really the time I enjoy an audiobook or reading, sitting by the beach, getting through a chapter or 2. But who has the time to read a full book?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think but if it was really what you needed and you were in the season, you're passionate, I'm sure. But like, also I've had to realize, gave myself permission. Like, if chapter helped me, great. Mm-hmm. Or if I read a chapter or listen to a chapter or 2, and then I realize this book is not of any value, or at least not right now, like, there's no read. I used to go, oh man, I gotta try to slog through it.
I'm invested already.
Yeah. Gotta feel like I read it or something like that. Yeah.
Books are great, and they're good for calming the mind. They're good for education. Like, there's so many benefits in reading a book, and I know that. I find the way, though, that I grasp information is by like quick excerpts. Like, people say, oh, TikTok, it's for fashion and for dancing. Not my TikTok. My TikTok's all business and financial advice, and because it knows what you're interested in, and then we'll tailor the content. I weirdly, and maybe I should be sharing this, I've learned so much from TikTok and Instagram Reels, because my feed is literally, there's a little sports, golf, hockey in there, but for the most part, it's financial advice from like reputable people, right? It's motivation from guys like Tony Robbins, and it's quick clips of a minute, and that holds my attention, and I retain a lot from those quick minute videos. Like, my wife's always like, how do you know everything? And I joke with her, I'm like, TikTok. She's like, stop it, you're kidding. I'm like, no, I'm serious. So I know it's not great for, the dopamine, the doom scrolling, but my version is pretty educational.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a great example of, there's no one right thing for everybody. Right. And I, just personally, I will listen to a book if it's really good, or some visuals. I'm very visual, so I will also want to look at it if there's some, visuals, but I'll listen to it or just parts of it. So if it's a longer form, if it's something I really want to get a lot of good business advice, I will do that. But like you were saying, with TikTok, IG, YouTube, my point is, like, people think YouTube and they think cat videos, or, what I mean? Like, or whatever, like, but it's like, no, like, there's some good business talks, some podcasts on there, some other things. It's just like, oh, when I can see you while I'm listening to you, sometimes I absorb, that information differently.
So you said you're writing a book?
Yes.
So you're interviewing 100 MSPs that resonate with you, top MSPs, fast growing, whatever you define as a top MSP, and then you're going to write on your findings, on your learning.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So this is my first book.
It's a very cool concept. I think you're going to do great, honestly. I mean, just the amount of exposure you're getting from talking to leaders at these MSPs, it's very insightful.
It is. And, you've been a huge help here today. And it's one of, I think, a little bit like you. It's like, I want to help others, right? I want to, the pleasing, like, help others. And so I realized there's this video or podcast people will be listening to or watching, but also you may want to listen to the book or get different aspects of it. So on that note, thank you so much for being on MSP Mindset today, Dan. I have learned so much. And this has truly been a privilege.